we're going to have a program by Rene van Rems. We hope that he's here to join us. We're excited to have one of the most fabulous educators here today, presenting Rene style. And, I had asked him if he can do this Rene style because I distinctly can spot Rene's work whenever I see it. So we'll see what that looks like because, he has a solid foundation in European education. He comes from Holland. And so he has that European education, and then he has sort of thrived as an educator in America over the years. And sort of working within the industry, sort of bridging between the designers and also to the wholesalers, the growers. He's been very actively involved in connecting everyone so that we can thrive as an industry together commercially as well. So, is he here, or should we go ahead and start the program?
Let's start the video, I think, and then Rene comes when he does, and then he can share with us at the end of the video. So
awesome!
Enjoy.
We still got a whole afternoon now. Are we ready? Yeah. Okay. Well, I have the honor and privilege of introducing the next presenter. He is a world-renowned ambassador of the floral industry. He is well-traveled and an award-winning designer and presenter. He's originally from Amsterdam, but now calls San Diego home for the last 25 years. A little about him. Rene studied floriculture, horticulture, and design for 6 years in Aalsmeer, Holland. He works in the industry as an independent consultant, designer, educator, and presenter. Rene and his work has been featured in numerous national and industry publications like Better Homes and Gardens, Sunset Magazine, San Diego Home and Garden, and Flowers and Magazine. He has also been featured on HGTV, showcasing European influence on trends in American floral design, as well as being one of the 2014 judges in the Tournament of Rose Parade held in Pasadena. He travels internationally. He's educated and entertaining industry audiences throughout his workshop presentations and speaking engagements. And besides all that, he's super funny. May I present Rene van Rems. Thank you, Rene.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, hi.
Hi.
So what did you think of all my warm-up acts?
They were great.
They were wonderful.
Are you the finale?
Some people, I'm it. No refunds, no refunds. So, I always tell people, we're in the flower business, so it's not like we're going to get rich overnight, so you better have fun. So if I say something, it's not to offend you. It's just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. So, no, I was walking down here after we prepped for this, and I thought, wow, this is one amazing event. I mean, seriously. Actually, Eric and everybody, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Truly, thank you. Thank you. Some of you have gone to AIFD Symposia, the American Institute of Floral Designers, and this is at that magnitude, except you're sitting really up close and, and personal. It's an incredible event and an amazing bargain. When I saw what they charge for this, I go, is that per day? If I say something really weird, remember you have to be extra loud in the response because this is a special. Oh, this is going really well. It must be the after lunch crowd. Yeah, we're like. Anyway. Oh, thank you. Oh my God. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Oh. I have to, this is a little personal. The first time I came to Hawaii, it was an FTD show. I was 12, and they were at the airport when you still could, and meet and greet. And I must have been given like 5 leis, and I dried them, and they're still hang on a bust in my bedroom. I have every one of them. Anyway, so thank you. This is a beautiful addition. Wow. Well, Hitomi asked if I could come, and I'm very humbled by the invitation. But then I said, what am I going to do? She goes, Rene style. I go, what is that? She goes, just do your thing. So if you like it, I made it. If you don't like it, someone else made it. Now, if I go here, you guys will react. Notice there's always, for those of you that do presentations, it's a riot being up here because you're all looking at me, but I'm looking at you. And I have a lot more choices. But it's really funny. If I say something on this side, they respond, and I usually the other, it's like. So what I'm doing, as Kathleen said, I was born and raised in Amsterdam. And when I was in school, the horticulture industry, of course, in the Netherlands. How many of you have been there? Can I see some hands? Oh, quite a few. Okay, good. European design had a lot. We had incredible courses, and so I did go to school for horticulture and plant physiology and nomenclature, then styling and merchandising and all that. So, plus you have to do an apprenticeship, which is not just I'll see you on Wednesday afternoon for 2 hours. It's like you're in lifestyle, which I loved, and I had an incredible mentor. And so a lot of the things that I know today, I realize how fortunate I was because I kind of took it for granted. And we all know when you do something, somebody will say, oh, you're so talented. And most of us will say, well, thank you, or, well, I had a good teacher and all that. And then I realized there are people with talent. And so as I get a little older, I go, I don't know what it is, but between education and training and everything else, that skill comes out, and I take it for granted. But you have to have that connection. And with me, it's a connection to the plant material, which is why I love the state of Hawaii, because, it's like being on crack, not that I ever have, but it's like you go and, stop the van, go, and there's quite a bit of roadsidea here. So, but most of it is commercial floriculture. Did you get that, Russell? What's a weed, right? A weed is just something that's growing where you don't want it to be. So this first arrangement, you'll see quite a bit of what I call high style design, where you're going vertically because most of nature goes up, right? Whether it's phototropism or whatever else you want to call it, there's different variations on a theme. But I personally love the idea that when you work with the vertical style, you bring out the value of nature. Whereas right now, a lot of designs are, pardon the expression, stuffed. And it's round. Now, it fits everywhere, but very often you lose the value of the individual beauty of the flower, right? And not to make it sound negative, but I know designers who need 10 hydrangea, and by the time they're finished, you don't see the hydrangea anymore. That's an expensive grid, right? So you'll see that in this design style, the negative space that's in here creates the arrangement, right? And then I am pretty, I would say personally pretty attracted to monochromatic or analogous color combinations. And Hitomi has great workshops on color and terminology and the value that it creates. Because even though I'm an artist, I am a commercial artist. My clients tend to be more high-end. And when they're high-end, they want flowers that look good in their living space, right? So polychromatic design is wonderful, and certain cultures love polychromatic. I tend to go more for the muted interior design style because of what it does to their environment. This is in a very inexpensive plastic container. It's actually a cooler bucket. And then with some spray glue, spray adhesive, spray the foliage on. Make sure you make it really tacky. Let it sit for a little bit, and then you just start from the bottom to the top. And most of the calatheas and alocasias and all those foliages, the back is just as gorgeous at the front. So in this case, in order to bring out the throat of the Phalaenopsis orchid, I just kind of made it a little darker and then all the way up. And the other thing that I'm big on is the manipulation of the product. So if there is like this bamboo had a lot more foliage on it, but I needed the line. I really needed this line. If I would have left the foliage on, it would have looked like a flower arrangement, right? So this creating something a little different, and of course the spadexes really help, right? Because they're all going up. So this is a perfect exercise in vertical design for like a counter or, this in a hotel, they would love it because it's not in the way, right? Check-in counter and so on. So anyway, there is the first arrangement. Thank you. Thank you. Many people, at least in my world, have a hard time with tropical flowers because they're a little intimidating. And there was a lady here yesterday, and she goes, wow, you need such a big container. So even though I love the height of all the heliconias, I love to create the sculpture. The other thing that you'll see, and this is specifically in European design, and you're going to do it in the workshop if you signed up for that, we're big on depth. So instead of putting these two together, I created the negative space in between it, but parallel, so that it gives you that 3D effect. And if we had a spotlight on this, it would actually come towards you, right? It's very inviting. And then I thought, you know what? Instead of going vertical, I thought, let's do something more horizontal. There's probably much better wordings for the style, and Hitomi is the queen of terminology. But in here are some mosses that are not green, they're more brown, courtesy of the Bromelia Nursery. I always have a bag somewhere, and you can kind of pick, and it needed to be cleaned up. And then this is the back part of it, so it looks like it's shooting through and just very, very strong. And then these little monkey pods, I keep forgetting the name.
Lipstick plant.
Lipstick plant, that's right, lipstick plant. And then a little bit of leucodendron that came from Maui. The Nephrolepis, I suppose it's one of the Boston ferns, but they grew, they grow in the ditch. But I wanted to show the rusticness with all the spore boxes on the back, so that continues into the banyan roots, which you get to work with this afternoon. So there's a repeat of texture, and yet the color goes through. So I usually don't do one-sided arrangements because you never know where they end up. I tend to, yes, it takes a little bit of work, and whether this is the front, right, or that's the front, if this is sitting on a really nice long cocktail table, you can sit at any spot and enjoy the sculptureness of it, right? But more than anything, I think you can see in my designs already that I work to upvalue the product as a commercial designer, right? That to me, that's really, really important. And I love when they said fresh look, because it is a fresh look, because we have a lot of people in the industry that just love to fill. I call it stuffing, but when you run out of money, you can't do that. So, and some people say, well, it's about the art, but I'm self-employed. So if they like it, yes, ma'am.
So Rene, you said you work a lot with monochromatic. I personally would think that this is a complementary because the green comes. So are you considering this a complementary?
This is complementary, yes.
Whether it be green flowers, but the green becomes.
Thank you, thank you. So in any industry, you can enter at a certain level, right? And some artists, whether you're a writer, a sculptor, your language changes how deep you go into it. If you've ever listened to a musician, classical musician, talk about their instrument and what they're doing, they're at a level that I'm like, you lost me, right? So technically this is complementary, and thank you. The green and the red. most people don't think of green as a color. It's what, unless you're like working with crayons. But in the flower industry, it doesn't happen often. But yes, and then you can see some of the green in the heliconia. So it just kind of bridges, right? I love the word bridging because it connects the product, which is why I chose this container. We knew what we were getting, but not totally. And so I love it when the container and the flowers create their values. Because if I put this in a basket, it's going to be an entirely different experience, right? So the vertical arrangement, is this okay? Fine. The vertical arrangement that's coming in from outside is somewhat similar in concept, only it's vertical. For those of you that are newer to the industry, as in commercial, the most important person in our industry is the delivery person. You can do everything you want to do perfectly, right? And if you have a driver that makes the turn a little too sharp, you have to have a driver who knows how to design. So this is extremely vertical. This is an inexpensive syndicate sales plastic container that we just put some spray glue on these alocasia. I usually use 77 3M glue. For some reason, it doesn't have the same chemistry in it where it doesn't burn the leaf, whereas the Gorilla Glue tends to burn things. As a matter of fact, I made 2 things that we had to redo because they turned brown. So, but instead of going your typical triangular way, this is all very vertical. These are not inserted one by one because we didn't have that much time. And 2 Mai Tais, it was great. But this is just a cluster stuck in. I work in floral foam a lot because to me, yes, there is the earth thing and all of that, but when I have 20 centerpieces to do, and I can make an arrangement in 7, not to brag, I can make a centerpiece in 7 minutes if it's in foam. You know, it's, and I'm used to it, I grew up with it. Some eucalyptus, which is now actually local, from what island? Maui?
This is from Big Island.
From the Big Island, wow. You can't bring it in. You know, a lot of stuff you can't bring in. So this is very centrifugal in a way, you know, where it just goes round and round and around. It's very sculptural. I suppose there's a little bit of a front, but that's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Just a few dendrobes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you don't need a boatload of flowers. Very sculptural, and I wanted to keep it really so that it's focused on the incredible foliage, you know. And for those of you that are local, you may be more used to this, but you know, when anybody else comes here and say you have some work with hotels and a tourist comes in, they won't even think this is real. Because there's so many professional designers in the room, I wanted to do something with fewer insertions. When I came to the United States, I went to a presentation, and the gentleman isn't with us anymore, but he started talking about insertions and how much time it takes, because the more insertions you put in an arrangement, the longer it takes. How many of you in the room, I want to see some hands, have been in the industry for more than 20 years? Wow, okay, wonderful. And thank you. Remember the wonderful arrangements with leather leaf. And when I saw that, I thought I was going to lose it. Because I used to do a lot of shows for wholesalers, and then I would see the retailers, and they go, oh, we do this in our store. And then I go to the store for a store visit, and they're standing there breaking leather leaf in 30 pieces. And they go, and what? And 2, and I need therapy. And then there's this little bitty roundy moundy bird's nest with, 50 pieces of leather leaf? And I'm like, something is wrong. And so this has maybe 22 insertions. And for the commercial people in the room, I've done this on stage with an arrangement that I bought in a flower shop, and I undid it on stage. I didn't tell the name of the shop, of course. Posies by Patsy. And so they're no longer in business. But I took it out on stage. It had 132 insertions.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Some of you remember, right? So back to the creative. Any Dracaena, which I know nobody here would be impressed by, well, maybe there are, But, you know, the rest of the world goes, oh my God, is this real? So I usually work color on color where this lycopodium has that same yellow-green, right? So I did yellow-green because to me, the yellow-green works much better with this color orange than blue-green, right? So I'm big on foliage color. So when I first did my book, because I was teaching so much, and people always said, what do you do for foliage? Because to me, foliage is not just the underwear of the flower arrangement. To me, if you do good foliage, half the job is done. Particularly color, not just the form of the foliage, but the color. So real quick, since, you know, green is blue and yellow, I love the yellow greens, which is basically that real springy, lily of the valley, light green, basically new growth, right, most of the time. Really light green. I have to go a little quicker because we have a luau after this thing. Then from here, I should say that. We have a luau after this thing. Light green, gray green, which are so popular, right? The Dusty Millers and all of that. Then the blue green. So anything that gets less light is going to get a lot more chlorophyll, and it becomes blue green. And then you've got all the, you know, the bronzes, which we have quite a few here, and then variegated foliage. And variegated foliage is great, but it tends to fight with whatever you put with it. But the light green or the blue green or the purple green, I tend to stick to the green that works best. But this is a vertical arrangement. It's done in foam, and then I usually do verticals, right? So, and you're going to do this afternoon, hopefully. 1, 2. That creates that height. Whereas if I stick it over here, you don't get that, right? Or God forbid it goes in like this, you don't get it either, right? So it's all it's repetition of line, and then repetition of form, and then here a mass flower underneath a form flower, right? Line, mass, filler, form, and a little bit of hydrangea, and then this on the other tour. When we had the second stop, they had a Phoenix robellinii that started to fruit, and this is the immature fruit of a Phoenix. It's a palm, and this to me just explodes out of that center. So I think people enjoy this style; they just don't see it anymore. I enjoy it because there's a lot of wow, and more importantly, it's quick and you can put a lot in your van. One thing that I grew up with in the Netherlands, thank you, sir, is vegetative design, and I did this in flower shops. I'm going to step away from it so you can see it better. Not that it has to be so tight on color or non-color, non-color. But when you see anthurium grow like we saw at Greenpoint, it's amazing that no matter what happens, at a certain point, most of the varieties are all repetition of form, right? And it's so incredible to see in a greenhouse. So I placed them that way. Real quick, if you do high style design, I worked with somebody and they said, I have a trick, you know, because it tends to move. And there's not a lot of foam in here because it's below. So he says, all you have to do is put a wire around it and make this little pod. Now you have to put this tight, but this doesn't move. So now I have 3 legs. So it's in place. Wow. I wish I had a camera. If you use hydrangea, especially this tall, make sure you cut it on a very sharp angle. It makes it drink better because of the foam. Technically, it doesn't drink more because even though it looks like you're cutting, you have more cells exposed, you really don't. It's just elongated, right? Here's the challenge with putting stems, you know, drinkers. If you put the stem in foam and you cut it perpendicularly, all you do is pushing the foam from underneath into a little piece of plastic with no water, right? You push it down, and then it's squashed. There is no water in the foam. It's sitting in a dry dock. Whereas if you cut it on an angle, it slices into the foam, and the stem cell and the foam cell connect, and it drinks. So anyway, but notice This is obviously going that way, but that's the way it grew. So that's vegetative. So anytime you place something vegetative, you honor how it grew, right? And so if you were to say, I have this amazing epidendrum, that would look really cool because it actually extends the way it grows. That's why I love going around here, because you can see it so well. Or if you're using a philodendron, it looks great to use it the way it grows. Whereas if I start arranging like this and like that, you know, to me, that's more abstract. I'm not saying it's wrong, but for this design, you want it to come out the way it grows. So that's vegetative. And you get to do that in class. Are you seeing a theme?
Yes.
Right? I truly, and I think, Hitomi, is that what you meant by Rene style? I'm not sure. Yeah. So I didn't really have a container, so this is a coffee can, courtesy of Maxwell and Greenpoint. Obviously, it had a lot of writing on it, so that tape, let me back up. My teacher always said, if you can't do it the way you must do it the way you can do it. In other words, no excuse, right? So that is blue tape, just regular blue, you know, that you buy at Home Depot. And then I used some of that banyan vine, wrapped it around, a few little U-glue dots. Oasis is quite a bit higher than the container. And these hala leaves are all inside. There's one that's on the outside, right there. So what I do, and I do it quite often, where the inside becomes the outside and the outside becomes the inside, kind of a Frank Lloyd Wright thing. Very simple, right? Look at this. 1, 2, 3. We have a different arrangement, right? It's the height that creates the wow. Sadly, not a lot of people do this anymore. And I had a discussion with someone at my studio. I have a studio in the flower market in San Diego area. And she said, my customers don't ask for this anymore. I go, of course not. They don't know we make this anymore. I mean, that excuse we had when FTD was born, right? They said, oh, my customers don't like that. Well, guess what? They left. I'm being a little, you get the point, right? Customers don't know what they want, right? Nobody said, you know, if you put less water and more beans and make a stronger coffee, I'll buy it. And there was Starbucks. Before that, what was coffee like in the United States? It was stronger than tea. It was like, nah, good look. Are you with me? Or? I took my medication. It hasn't kicked in yet. But, and of course, all the way around, hydrangea. So very complementary, right? One oncidium, a little shorter. This, I do a lot, 1, 2, right? Instead of 1, 2. I do this, and it just extends, one, you know, etc. I found some marigolds, which is mind-boggling, because that's from Mexico. Hardly any, you can't grow that in California anymore because it's too expensive. Can you see the repeat, right? Vertical, vertical, vertical. You know what I love about high-style design? You don't necessarily need a lot of flowers. Right? There's a lot of air. This is another item that we have in San Diego. This is the Schefflera, and when it blooms, these are actually the flower buds, and they spread out like an umbrella. Sadly, in San Diego or Southern California, they're cutting more and more landscaping short and tight because of insurance and fires, but this, so you don't see this a lot. Look at what this does, right? It just. Now, I have to back up. This is for a certain audience, right? I mean, not everyone is going to enjoy this. And for example, in San Diego, where we have bird of paradise growing on the side of the road, you don't make something for someone living in an old area of San Diego and give them an arrangement with bird of paradise that are both in the front and the backyard, right? That's a losing battle. So I'm not saying to send this to a local person, but that's not where the money is anyway. Am I correct? Right? I mean, the money is all the tourists. And so the chocolate anthurium, heliconia, very similar. There is the mature Phoenix roebelinii. Isn't that amazing? This fruit doesn't have color coming out of it when it's flat, meaning if you deliver this to someone and they have white carpet, you need good insurance. I tend to use fruit that doesn't stain, whether it's a bridal bouquet or anything like that. So when I see people working with raspberries, I go, good luck. Why do it, right? So whereas Hypericum, you know, all the coffee bean berries, when you crush that, no stain. So look at this. Here is a vertical in that same container as the heliconia one, which I showed you earlier over there. Look at the difference in appearance of container just by the style of the design, right? Identical container. It's fun to see what you can do with things, right? So this is a little Target tray, $6. Look at this. This is what makes this arrangement, right? That was the inspiration of this. And then, of course, I went into all these different greens. Something fell out here. This incredible moss is from the orchid grower that we went to, the very large orchid grower, and I apologize for not remembering the name. Look at how few items are in here and how pleasant it is to live with this, right? Because to me, I'm not talking about what I made, but if we create things that people want to be with, that fit in their lifestyle, we'll all be working overtime, right? And these Midori anthuriums, and then at Greenpoint, they had some twisted juniper that I placed the way it grows. So here's the juniper. If there's one item I really want you to take away from today is to just honor the way things grow. And when you design with them the way they grow, it just works. Whereas if you set it like the wind came from the east, it just doesn't have the same thing. So here's the arrangement, right? It's all it looks like this lycopodium just came out of the lava, right? And then this is inserted on this angle. You're going to do this in the class. It's inserted not because of how I want to insert it. That's secondary. The insertion is based on this. Now, if the line isn't there, then I just have mass, right? But if I insert it sideways, now the tip of that twisted juniper accentuates the vertical of the lycopodium, right? I know this is not a class, but I always do it like that. And that moss that I stole off the PVC pipe, I mean, it is, look at this stuff. This man doesn't know he's sitting on a gold mine. I'm not kidding. Mainland, how many mainland people do we have? What does a box of moss cost nowadays? A lot of money. You know how you sometimes just don't know what you got? Anyway, there's your vertical, other kind of vegetative arrangement. Okay, beautiful. Turn. Yay, yay. Beautiful, thank you. Okay, so mechanics. You like this?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. Believe it or not, I put some foam in there because of how I styled it. Not that you have to. And I mean, this is not a flower. This is sex on a stick. You know, this is like so amazing. Oh, there goes my video again. Sorry, guys. I just found these materials, and I'm like, oh, this, you know, it just really works. And then some orchids there, and a little bit more of these berries. And can you imagine this in the lobby of a hotel? I think, right? It's like, and it's not in the way. It's very bottom heavy, so it doesn't fall over. And there's a little bit of foam. We don't have time to go over it, but you know, mechanics is 99% of the deal. Ask Mr. Phil. It's all mechanics. This is sitting on the floor of the container. The container is metal. The fern is inside out because of the spores, right? The spores reflect right back into the heliconia. You can look at it a little later, but.
Can you tell us the berries?
The berries. The berries are. So there is Rhodesidea, and the other one is Elongaditcheriana. Oh, let me do it over there because they're not pink. What is this again? It is a guava, right? And these are actually, let me get it right. These are really good. I mean, but look at that. Isn't that amazing? And, you know, my friends go, "You're weird." I go, "Thank you."
So did you remove all the leaves?
I removed all the leaves. You know, you saw this the way Hitomi and Lois as well, particularly. It's about editing. You edit, you edit, you edit. The minute you start just adding, it doesn't work. In closing, since Hitomi said, "Are you going to do a hand-tied bouquet?" And I go, "Thank you." Yeah, I can. I said, "Yeah, I'll do a hand-tied bouquet." So it's kind of a mixture of. It's a mixture of. There.
I can take that on the plane.
Sure. So this is a spiral hand-tied, of course. You cannot do a bouquet this large if you don't. Well, you can, but you can't hold it. You know, the bridal bouquets now where the bride has two hands around the bouquet and then she's resting it on the husband because, are we there yet? You know, like.
It's very heavy.
It's crazy. Very crazy. And they give it to the bridesmaid and they're like, anyway. So, but.
When you throw it.
Oh, yeah. No, it's scary. So it's hand-tied, and like I said, I love mixing tropicals and the waxy textures then with other flowers. So there's some dendrobes in here, and of course I love lycopodium. We can't always get it in California, and then any kind of new fern, and we had this in water for a week. So even though it's soft, it's holding up. If you don't spiral it, it's hard to make this unless you have really big hands. So that, yeah, you want to pass it along, Jen? So the spiral, when I do a bouquet like this, I use binded tape. I want to see some hands. Do we know what binded tape is? Oh, not too many. This is relatively new. And unless you know what it is, you wouldn't buy it. But here's the cool thing about it. And when they first introduced this, I was like, wow, this is so cool. Because it is a stretchy tape, almost like a rubber band, right? It comes with a backing, and it stretches. So if you do hand-tied bouquets, especially for weddings, this actually gets tighter the more you wrap it around. You don't need much. It's not the cheapest, but this goes around and around and around, and it doesn't let go. So when you put one against the other, once you do that, it doesn't come apart. But there's no adhesive on it. It's just the chemistry in the tape. But this is so good. Only quick thing I need to tell you, because I believe in this, and I sold a lot of this on stage for these wonderful people, is you can't put it underwater. It'll let go. So if you have a bridal bouquet or hand-tied bouquet, you'd have to keep it below that. But this stuff, so if you want a bouquet that, you know, is not going to move around the day off, this stuff is great. So it's called binded tape. So the other thing that I wanted to share with you is this, the tape technique that I've used in a few things, right? This is really easy.
Oh, your new skirt. That's good. Yeah, I love it. Is that what you're wearing today?
So I have to share with you. You know, when I first started doing presentations, I went to Professional Floral Commentators International, which is a speaking group in the flower industry. And then I went to some National Speakers Association programs. And they always said there's the golden rule of what not to touch when you're in public. One of them is don't talk about sex, politics, and religion. The only thing I haven't touched on is religion yet, but have I offended anyone? No.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. No, I'm almost done. So any kind of foliage like this, you just wrap this around, which is what I have in my last piece. And this is super simple. Now, this is rather wide, but you can do it with lesser tape. It needs to be, it has to be sticky, and you wrap this around on any piece of glass. I mean, that is a super cool container, right? So I like the things outside the box, and you don't do one at a time. You just go, It took me, what, 2 minutes to do this? So same with this. Lay the tape down, lay your lily grass or bear grass on there, so you have this really cool container. Then, pardon me?
Was that KT?
This is duct tape, like duct tape, yeah. And it comes in a lot of colors, so if you have a color theme going, you may not even need, oh, they have tiger pattern now. So you don't even have to cover it up. So you can imagine that if you were to do something in here, you already have a really good look. And then done. You like it? That. If you had 5 beautiful hydrangeas, it would be done, right? It doesn't have to be overworked. Sometimes you can just, you know. Now, you could do this with all tropical textures because of the glossiness of the foliage, right? You can keep the really highly reflective material. I'm going to put a little bit of line in there. Line is hard to do in these cylinders because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't do this. But this delphinium, which Larkspur, was sponsored and sent to us from Milano in California, and they're very similar to Eric and other people, few other people in the industry who just educate and donate, and it's humbling to see that we have people who are so dedicated to what we do. Now, not because I'm standing here, but when I do bridal work, I use Hawaiian dendrobiums. I can't handle the flat tie stuff. It's just, there's no depth to it. It's just flat. And this, you do bridal work, it has movement. It's like, it's not like, you know, it's just a whole different story. And the extra long ones, which they love to sell you, they are so incredible. And then this anthurium that kind of inspired all this. I have an anthurium in here that is a blush, but it's a very light blush, so that's why the pink larkspur is here. And not that everything has to have a reason, but I like to bridge things, you know, so that the eye just kind of travels. And that's that. And then, I mean, the spadix alone is enough. I mean, look at just that detail, right? 1, 2, 3. Ooh. People in the back. It's almost it is a leaf, right? An anthurium is a leaf. So it's pretty amazing how that really connects it. I just think things like this are fun. And I mean, this doesn't take much, right? And by the way, that's 2 bunches of lily grass or what other foliage you want to use. If a consumer gets this, or when a consumer gets this, there's the wow. Remember the magic when they open the door, if they're home? And last but not least, we're the only people that deliver a wow, because the people delivering boxes, there ain't no wow, or as I call it, a gift with a liability, like an obligation, right? You get a gift, but you have to do it. So this is my little how-to. Hope you like it. This piece. You tell me what the inspiration was for this piece. What element is the inspiration for this?
A lava. Extra. Girl. Dancer. Yeah. Hawaiian dancer.
Oh, I got it. Fascinating. Well, I love the gingers, but the majority of people just don't know what to do with them, right? And so I love this vegetative approach. And when you saw them coming out of the ground, no matter what angle, they're like candles, you know, they stand up. So that to me was great. And then the araucaria, which you see everywhere, I asked Neo, I said, can I get some of the Norfolk Island pine? And I had these huge branches. And I stripped them all, and that's here. So this is what I showed you with the tape, right? And then I just paved everything. Here's more of that coral inflorescence, one bromeliad, nereogelia, some more of the monkey pods. This is the new bubble gum that we saw in the horticultural, in the botanic garden. And again, I don't do things one-sidedly. To me, it's sculpture, right? Isn't this incredible? And I work on color. I'm just a color guy, right? And then the other thing I would love for you to work on when you design this afternoon is don't fill it in. You need to be able to fly a little helicopter through this, right? You need the space. If I fill this in, you lose the whole thing. So, and then there's this framing. This is called framing. There's your sunflowers that are plucked. And in closing, I want to thank everybody for being here, for coming here, and give yourself a big hand for that. Thank you. And there is a gentleman here who has been working so freaking hard with his team. Neo, where are you? You know how much work this is. Neo and his team. Come here. He's one of these background guys. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. They've been working around the clock. Flowers, I mean, you name it, they've been, so thank you. It's like being a chef. If you have a really good team behind you, it all goes beautifully, right? Hitomi, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That was fantastic, Rene. Fabulous program.
Can you unmute yourself, Rene?
There we go. I thought I did it. Hi, guys.
That's awesome. It's good to
Aloha.
hear your voice.
Thank you.
It is. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we have some great questions from our audience. If you can share your comments with us or the answers to these questions. One question from the audience so far is, how long does the lily grass last without water?
Oh, I get that question a lot. Lily grass, because of its being so succulent and it has such a good epidermis, it lasts, I would say, out of water about a week, after which it starts to do a little bit of wilting. But the crazy thing is, truly the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, in that when it starts to dry, many people just think it's really cool. It's going to droop a little bit, but I have seen them last a good week. Last but not least, you can also set that arrangement in a dish. And then the bottom of the leaves is actually going to drink. And I've seen European designers do that, where they set it in a glass tray, like they do with hand-tied bouquets. And then it just is part of the design for as long as it lasts, which is probably a month.
That's a good answer. In fact, it just gives you another idea and it continues and continues. That's the best part of your presentation is there's so many wise answers, even before the audience is asking, you're providing them with solutions to a lot of things, which is fantastic. That's what education is all about. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So can I ask a question, Johnny?
Please.
Of course, please.
Okay, so how important is it to really know the elements and principles of design to be a successful floral designer and to have a successful floral business? What do you think?
Oh my goodness. Well, my philosophy is that, the art is very important. I think depending on how artistically involved the person is, how much they have ventured into art and artistic ways, whatever expression that is, they are going to end up looking at principles almost separately from elements, because I feel that many people kind of understand the elements easier because it's so tactile and so visual, color, texture, etc. When it comes to the really artistic things like rhythm or harmony, not everyone knows the exact quote unquote definition, which of course you're the master of. I think that it's important in hierarchy. Again, I'm a commercial artist, so I go for color first, only because most consumers in the world, their eyeball goes to color. And then I always joke about it and I go, the next thing people do is touch it. And that's just the human psyche from my point of view. And, you see it in retail. You go to a department store and they see a sweater and the next thing they do is their hand is on it. And sometimes they even pick it up. So I think when it comes to principles and elements, I tend to go more for elements, even though I understand the principles.
Excellent. So it goes to show you it's very important.
Very
for
important.
Composition.
Very important.
And of course, it has a lot to do with the economy means how much you put in to get the best effect. Because I think that's one of the things that you kind of told me about the commercial floristry is in the end, you have to sell it. So, right? So
well, it's when somebody says, what is it worth? And I go, how much do you like it?
There you go.
Or as they used to say in the old wire service days, how much trouble are you in to a guy? And I think that is the beauty and the challenge in what we do. Number one, we're creating living art, which is perishable, and you have to sell it to the highest bidder at the best time.
Absolutely.
That to me is, well, you look at an open rose. Some people will say, well, I don't want an open rose because I want it to last. However, when you're throwing a big party and you're doing a very voluptuous Baroque look, they need to be open. So that budded rose or funeral sympathy work, if you have closed flowers, and so that's all to me principles and elements where the art, that's why it's so challenging to teach sometimes, because it is how we perceive it.
Right. That makes total sense.
And to me, everyone perceives it a little differently. Yes. Thank God.
One of our guests is asking, Rene, what was the name of your book and how can it be purchased?
Oh, the name of, the first book that I did is called Rene's Bouquets, a guide to Euro-style hand-tied bouquets. And there are several, I took it off Amazon personally, but there are some secondhand booksellers out there that have it for sale. Pretty inexpensively because it's not the newest book. My other book, which is also Rene's Bouquets, but it's Rene's Bouquets for Brides, which is a large book that is almost a modern day selection guides for brides to see the different styles of bouquet forms. So I took 25 styles, some of which were old school, but I changed them around to a modern application, but shower bouquets and nosegays. And that book is also for sale. I think Amazon has it, and some of the other, if you type it in, it would show up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Excellent. So in Hawaii, you were able to use kind of more or less as much tropicals as you want. So how did you enjoy that experience, and how relevant is the use of tropicals, whether it's mixed with temperates or used alone, is it to today's floristry? What do you think its sort of popularity factor is?
Oh my goodness. I love those questions. You know, I'm a horticulturist and I love marketing. And I think that the way forward for Hawaii's floriculture is to show people, like what they did in our program, the HFNA program, that there are so many ways you can use the flowers. And it's no different than chefs trying to come up with something different, right? I think that the product, I don't like the term, it sells itself, because when people see it, they just respond so favorably. And I think that the versatility of the product is what people are not familiar with. So no critique on anyone, but when you see a triangular arrangement made out of tropicals, it's so rigid for today's culture that people tend to shy away from it. And I think if we give it some more movement, which some of them by nature don't have a lot, but then when you put it in capable hands, those flowers actually have movement. I mean, take a heliconia. And I think people are sometimes, meaning florists and designers, are intimidated by the size.
Yes, definitely.
Because if you have a large anthurium, you're kind of, it's a long answer, but you're kind of told what size container. So there are cause and effects that are not variables, and that changes the level of what you do with it a little bit compared to regular flowers.
Well, it's great to hear from you, who have worked with the California cut flower and other associations, to hear your take on how you see the tropical in Hawaii and the marketing of it. So thank you so much.
I was so pleased to be part of this and to touch it and work with it. It's very humbling, and the product, when you have amazing quality of materials and the uniqueness of it, then the rest to me kind of flows. And the inspiration is the product.
Well, I saw that you had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun.
I did. And I'm very happy to be been invited by you and the team to come to Hilo and do this.
Excellent.
We're really happy to have you, Rene. You're welcome. Here's an interesting question. What made you decide to come to the United States early in your career after your European training?
Oh my goodness. Well, a little bit of serendipity. I'll make it short. I had just finished my horticultural schooling in Aalsmeer, and I was working at the Hilton Hotel in Amsterdam to make some money and to learn more English, actual English. And I met an American couple from San Diego, California. This is in 1976. I remember the day they came in. I offered to take them on a tour of Aalsmeer and the auction and all that. I was a kid. And then when they left after the day, they said, oh gosh, if you ever want to come and work with us, let me know. So Ohio State University, with their amazing OH program, they facilitated that. And the couple that I toured around invited me to come and live with them and work with them in Encinitas, California, in a Cymbidium greenhouse.
And that's how I got here. And then some young lady snagged me up and stayed ever since.
That's great.
It was, I was, as a horticulturist, of course, I was smitten because everything that grows here, we learned in greenhouses.
That's great.
And Rene, again, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
presentation, and thank you for sharing your experiences with all of us.
Thank you. It's
Yes.
a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes.
It's
Great
our
to see
pleasure
you.
to have you here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Rene.
you all. Thank you.